What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Unbroken Arrows. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Greg. We have several reoccurring themes on our podcast, and one is that we do and will continue to support our veterans and our active military. I will start today's Unbroken Arrows podcast with a bit of my why. My grandfather, my mother's father, served in the military. I have uncles on both sides of my family that served in the military. My father-in-law, Holly's father, and both of his brothers served, as did her two uncles on her mother's side of the family. Stephanie's father and brother, which are Catherine's grandpa and uncle, both served. Two of my nephews were in the Army Reserves, one of which was deployed 3 times. My son Elliot is active duty Air Force. My daughter Sydney is active duty Navy. I had the honor and the privilege of being with Sydney aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln for the last 7 days of her 2022 deployment on that boat. During those 7 days, I had only a glimpse of the jobs these young sailors do, the sacrifices they make, and I was aboard that boat for 7 days. They were aboard the boat for just under 8 months. Elliot has been deployed to Qatar. He was stationed in Guam for 4 years and is now preparing to move his family to Europe for his next assignment, which is going to be a minimum of 4 years. I can speak directly to the pride that Holly and I felt when our children chose to serve their country. As parents, though, that did not and does not mean that feeling of pride made it any easier for us. It is not the same sacrifice that those serving are making. But members of the families that have served and are serving are making a different sacrifice. So if anyone might wonder why supporting the military and supporting our veterans is a recurring theme on the Unbroken Arrows podcast, this, in part, is the why. Our guest today is Mark Richardson. Mark is the Business Development Director and a current board member of Take a Vet Fishing. Take a Vet Fishing started in 2012, and its base of operation is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The events hosted by this organization center around providing each participating veteran an opportunity to experience a therapeutic day of fishing. And their plan moving forward includes continuing to show our nation's heroes the healing power of the outdoors and to provide them with additional resources to battle post-traumatic stress disorder. Mark, we would like to welcome you as our guest on the Unbroken Arrows Healing Through the Hunt podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, and thank you for what you guys are doing with your podcast and your reaching out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Awesome. Could you share with us just a little bit of the history of how Take a Vet Fishing came to be?
Sure. Well, back in 2011, our president, Jay Garstecki, and our co-founder, one of the co-founders, Rob Blanchard, were introduced by a mutual friend. Both of them had a similar idea in mind, and so they got together and created Take a Vet Fishing. Did a very small, impromptu event where a few guides came out and took some veterans fishing, literally cooked hamburgers and hot dogs on a grill, and it went really well. So they thought, let's do it again. So the next year they formalized the organization in 2012, and that's since then it's been organized as a nonprofit and organization to really just, we call it a day of giving back, to just give back and say thank you to veterans and their families for their service. That's kind of what Take a Vet Fishing is in a nutshell. And fishing is a good way to bring people together. As you know, with your focus, the outdoors does wonders for people. And, we felt the same way when it started. Fishing therapy is a good thing, and it makes people relax and forget trouble and try to make that day better than the one before.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was going to ask is, why fishing? Why did the founders decide to focus on a day of fishing? And just to add to that, on some of your literature, there's a statement that says fishing is much more than just a relaxing pastime, and I couldn't agree more. But why fishing?
Well, Jay was a tournament fisherman. Rob has a tackle company that he works that he started, and that's kind of how they met. They're at a outdoor expo, hunting and fishing expo, and got to meet each other there. So it was a natural thing to lean to because that was their expertise and that's what they knew. And Rob was a veteran, it just kind of blossomed from there. So
Sure, sure.
yeah.
And this program has existed for 12 years now. How
Yeah,
many participants have you had total? Do you have numbers?
well, the website information is a little bit dated. It just never had updated over the last year, but basically we've had over 5,000 veterans fishing since 2012. So the growth has been tremendous. Most of the events average between 50 or 60 to over 100 veterans per event. So when you do 9 events a year, you get a lot of people out there on the water, and um, and it's just a great way for them to enjoy the day, forget about any troubles they may have, and get their families involved because as we know they're a part of it too. So
Sure. The program slogan is a day of giving back. So, what does a day of the event, or what does the day of the event look like?
well, they're a little different depending on our location. The majority of our events are in the upper Midwest. This year we'll be doing 3 in Minnesota, 2 in Wisconsin, 1 in Michigan, 1 in Illinois, and we also do events down in the Tampa area in Florida. Now, the upper Midwest, essentially on our website, the veterans sign up for a particular event they'd like to be a part of, and our guides do the same thing. And by guides, they don't necessarily have to be professional guides. They can be, and many of them are veterans as well. But it's just usually somebody wants to volunteer their time and boat and get somebody on the water. And then we have an area for volunteers to sign up. We'll need help with setting tables and boat launch and parking and cleanup and all that kind of thing. And we generally have no issues finding participants because it's a great day for everybody involved. And then some events are fishing in the morning, some events are fishing in the evening or in the afternoon. So we'll either have a breakfast before the event where we have our honor ceremony where we'll post the colors, thank all the veterans for their service of the different eras or wars they may have participated in, as well as their families, have the national anthem sung, and then have a program where we'll have speakers come and talk about different, maybe a vendor or a sponsor or a donor may come and thank the veterans, just to recognize their service that day. And then the afternoon we'll spend on the water fishing, which is where the relaxation really comes in. It'll be flipped. So if sometimes we do a morning fishing and then we'll have a lunch and an afternoon ceremony. In Florida, on the events down there, we charter larger boats because they go offshore 8 to 10 miles, and we'll get roughly 70 veterans on one of those boats, and we'll do a morning ceremony and they'll fish in the afternoon. So one way or the other. Sometimes we have one vet per boat, sometimes we have 2 or 3 per boat, and then we'll have pontoons and larger boats for veterans that may have physical needs to consider to get them out in the water, wheelchair bound or just shaky on their feet, whatever it might be. But that's one of the things that we've never not been able to get a veteran on the water fishing. So we're pretty happy with that because we have a lot of good helpers. We pick good locations to do our events, so we make it easier on the veterans because safety really is paramount in what we do. We will not do an event if it's not safe.
I'm sure that is a critical piece of that. Are there any requirements for the veteran participants in the program?
Not really. Just wanting to have a good day really is what it is. They can be peacetime veterans, wartime veterans, any era, any war, male, female. It doesn't matter. we just invite them all, and we talked about the families before, but we also invite the families to be part of sometimes the fishing, because sometimes the veterans will need assistance
Sure.
over and above what we can do. But most times the families will stay for the ceremony and the speakers, and then the fishing will take place either before or after that. So, but the more people we get involved, the better, because that's where families deal with it too. They live with those memories and those hardships when their loved one was deployed or in a war zone or injured or whatever it might be. So,
Okay. Your literature mentions that two of the biggest mental health concerns that many veterans deal with are post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. So what are some of the resources that your organization provides?
well, post-traumatic stress is, and we also, we not only provide that for veterans, but also their families. One of the really blessed things that happened since we've started is our growth has come to the point over the last several years where we're able to fund the treatment and travel and lodging and whatever it takes to get treatment for a veteran, whether it be TRP therapy through 22-0, veteran service dog, equine therapy. We have partners in there. Stellate ganglion shot, which is a medical procedure. We pay for all of that. There's no charge to the veterans for any of that, and there's no charge for any veterans for any of our events. We pay for a hotel room. If they live outside of 60 miles from the event, we pay for a hotel room for their night. We pay for their food. We just make sure that there's no pressure or concern for the veteran to worry about. And we want to make sure it's worry-free. But yeah, some of the one thing I do want to point out too, getting back to our events, we do not do any fundraising at the events. We have a rule where when we're putting on a Take a Vet fishing event, we do not take donations at all. It's funny in a way. We've had people want to give donations at those events, and we've tell them no, and
Sure.
they get a little irritated at times with it because we won't take their money.
Mm-hmm.
And but we say, you know what? Talk to me tomorrow, mail me a check, go online, but we're not because that's not what it's about today. It's about those veterans and their families today. So we make sure we do not do that. I just wanted to add that because we don't do any selling. The sponsors and donors who speak at the events they're there to thank the veterans for their service. And that's what it's all about. They appreciate it. They don't do any sales pitch for anything that they might be doing. That's not what it's about. All that can come down the road when people rethink and look at our sponsor list and things like that. 22-0 is one of probably our most popular PTS treatment partner. It's all done by Zoom. I mean, you don't have to fly anywhere. It's a protocol where they, in essence, try to detach the fight or flight mechanism from the trauma. They don't necessarily have to relive the trauma. They just have to acknowledge it. But it kind of makes that trauma is weird in a way. When people go through trauma, it can be through whatever. And that's the other thing. We don't care where the trauma came from. It can come from something that happened while they're in the military. It could come something from their childhood, an accident, whatever it might be. But those things get written to your brain kind of like a hard drive on a computer. And there's certain triggers that'll bring those out. And it's trying to make sure those triggers get separated from that event so they don't cause the reaction and the triggering and the emotional distress and anxiety that comes along with PTS. It's been a great program. Service dogs, most people are aware with that. VTT Service Dogs in Lyons, Illinois is one of our partners. Wonderful group. We pay for the dogs, we pay for the training, we pay for the veteran to be, if they have to have lodging there, we'll pay for that too. That's amazing system that they have to keep these veterans, to make the best life that they can have, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. If I could, Mark, one of the things I just wanted to, and correct me if I'm wrong in my description, but you referred to 22-0, and my understanding is that the statistics show that 22 veterans commit suicide each and every day, and the goal would be 0. And
Correct.
and that is where the name of that organization came from, 22-0.
That's correct. They, depending on the stats you look at, around 22, give or take.
Hmm.
There's different statistics out there, but 22 is generally the number most used for how many veterans commit suicide in our country every day. And anything we can do to prevent that, obviously, as you know, that's why the more people that are aware of what's happening, and there's resources out there that can be utilized through us or other groups, that's what we're trying to do: create as much awareness as we can and help as many as we can.
Sure. And you mentioned family members, and
Mm-hmm.
and you said that they're an important piece of this as well. And you said that the family members actually go on the boat with us, or some of the family members go on the boat with the veterans.
Typically, they do not, unless that veteran needs some special help that we can't
Assistance.
provide. Yeah, but otherwise, we encourage and welcome them to come to stay for the ceremony, because they all go through it, and those events are emotional. They're happy. They're inspiring. Just by when you see a veteran coming off a dock with a big smile on their face, whether they caught a fish or not, it means a lot. And when the families see that, and many of the veterans that we have actually suffer from PTS that come out on the events. Not all, but many do. And that sometimes that one day that that they can relax and not think about it can do wonders for someone. It can prompt them to get the help they need. They sometimes they're just afraid to talk to. When they see us out there and we have resources and we're able to we're accessible. We want to make sure they know that they can talk to us because we have resources. It can make a huge difference in their life.
Sure.
Just that they see that somebody cares, and the fear of, whether from pride or whether it's just from fear or embarrassment, over it might be. Once they get past that, their lives can be changed forever. It's amazing. So
Absolutely. And we've visited a couple of times prior to this recording of the podcast. And one of the things that I found interesting was you described to me how the PTS can actually extend to the family members of
right.
of the veterans, not just the veterans. How does that, or how have you seen that, and are your resources available for the families there too?
Absolutely. We not only fund the treatment for veterans, but their family members as well. And the thing about when there's someone suffering from post-traumatic stress, they're triggered, and the family members live it right along with them. So they create their own anxiety many times, just from the simple fact that they're witnessing what they're going through, and the levels of that are all over the board. People are different. They can have severe, it can be mild, it really doesn't matter. It's affecting them some way. And when the family members see that, it's almost like post-traumatic stress by association, especially with the spouse and the kids. They see that. We had a veteran, more than one actually, kind of give an example where something will trigger them in the night, and they're up patrolling the house at night, and whether or not it's something that's real, that's how they perceive it, and they live through that. The family lives through that. We have another friend of mine and donor who has family members grew up and saw lots of bad things in Vietnam, and she's had triggers from multiple family members, and then so when she sees those triggers, it triggers emotions in her, which can cause anxiety and depression.
Sure.
So that's something that people kind of forget about, is that by those family members living that, they're also experiencing that, and it can be a weight on their mind too. So anytime we can help that, because you don't want that stuff to get out of control. It's kind of like a fire. If you see a small fire, put it out right away. Don't let it grow, and that's kind of how I look at it anyway. So
Sure.
anything we can do, that's kind of how we do it. So
Sure. Now, someone might be wondering, why we are interviewing somebody from Kenosha, Wisconsin, and there are some organizations that do limit the participation of of the people, maybe to the state, as to where this organization is located. But Take a Vet Fishing does not. So a veteran from South Dakota, where we're located, or Minnesota or Iowa or whatever, could make application for attending an event, correct?
Absolutely. We welcome from anywhere. Obviously, one thing we don't do, we can't, is provide transportation. But
Sure.
if a veteran can get to our event, we would love to have them. We've had, for instance, at the Minnesota event, we've had veterans from South Dakota and Western Minnesota here. We've had them from Iowa. We've had them from Southern Illinois come to our Illinois event, and that's a long drive, but it's worth it to them because a couple of them were experienced it. They've been to multiple events, and they know the kind of day it is, and sometimes that little refresher when they come back is what they need to get through another year, essentially. No, we welcome from all over. That's what we would love to expand to every state. That's always been our goal. Whether or not we can logistically and financially, those are the two things that get in the way. But we're fortunate to have much of our team here in the Upper Midwest, so we can do multiple states, and then also in Florida, we can get those set up. We're not set up like a chapter, say like Pheasants Forever or Ducks Unlimited, things
Sure.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have chapters. And the reason we don't do that is because we're pretty hands-on, so we want to make sure our events go well. We always look at you're remembered by your very last event. So if we have a bad event, that's what people remember. So we haven't not had that. And yes, there's a lot of running around and a lot of things in the background that people don't see. There's always hiccups and hitches that you got to work through. But at the end of the day, when we see those veterans and their families having a great day, which happens every time, that's what it's about. So
Sure.
Where does most of the financing come from then? Is it mostly donations?
it's all donations. We're very fortunate to have few larger, like Great Clips organization, the hairdresser company. They've been on board since day one. Had it not been for that company, we wouldn't be around. They still are. They do a ton for veterans that people don't even realize. They don't advertise it, but they do a ton for veterans. But honestly, most of our donations come from ordinary people. We try to. I mean, yes, we have hundreds and hundreds of small donors, and by small, it could be anywhere from $5 to 100 or whatever it might be. But that's also where the awareness is created. We do many events. We do fundraising events as well. But we also go out and we speak regularly to VFWs and American Legions and different festivals, county fairs, sporting events, things like that. In fact, this Friday, Janesville, Wisconsin has the Janesville Jets hockey team. I'll be setting up a table there and it's all about creating awareness, because I always say when you're fundraising for a nonprofit, which is the hardest, that's always the rub, is you got to raise money. But there's a lot can be done without spending a dime. Just talking to people one-to-one, making people aware of what they're doing, because they'll talk to people, and eventually those conversations fall in the right ears, and somebody makes a donation. And that's kind of where it's at. And so it doesn't always have to be money. Granted, nonprofits need it, but
Right.
the good doesn't have to always come from that. So
If someone wanted to make a donation, whether it's just a single person or a company, or become a sponsor, how should they go about doing that?
well, they can do donations can be made through our website. We have a donation page on our website. They can do it online. It's all safe and secure. They can mail a check to our Kenosha address. Technically could mail a check to any of us on the board. As far as becoming a donor or sponsor, we do get that. In fact, I just had a call yesterday from a local fella here who saw me at a car. We have a function here in Edgerton called Tobacco Heritage Days, and I do the car show down there. I set up a table. Well, he took my card, and he's putting on a catfish tournament here on a local body of water, and the proceeds will go to Take a Vet Fishing. So just that organic, where you get that's just from simply going out and talking to people. And that's where I think it all has to grow from. I mean, you have to have some donors that, can cover much of your larger expenses, but when it comes to the events, it's all done by donation. Everything we do is done by donation. And we're very fortunate to have as many donors and corporate and private that we have, because they really care about veterans, want to see them succeed. So anything they help us out to make sure that goal gets accomplished.
And I see that on your upcoming events on the website, it talks about there's a bowling tournament, a fundraising bowling tournament in Arizona. So, that
Yeah.
speaks to the fact that it is much more than just that local area around Wisconsin.
Well, that all came about because our treasurer, Michelle Eitzer, some of her family lives down there, so they go down for a couple of months during the wintertime. And this year they've organized a bowling tournament fundraiser, and which is happening this weekend actually, and it's full. So which is kind of neat, because any awareness you can create throughout the country is that's part of being a nonprofit. Is you got to network, and you got to try to raise money. It's a constant effort. This is one of the things we do, but it we'll have our resources down there to create awareness for people who need that. So all of our fundraising events have that dual purpose of finding resources for people as well. One of the cool byproducts of our events is when we put on a Take a Vet fishing event, those people know many times who needs help. So we not only do we get to honor those veterans and their families, but we also find out many times who needs help, and we can refer those to one of the groups that we do. So it's always dual purpose. Anything that we can do to create awareness, that's what it's about. So
one of the questions that I have, I guess, and I talked to you about this before, and I asked, well, would you ever have an event, say, well, Lewis and Clark Lake is the reservoir on the Missouri River between Nebraska and South Dakota, and I'm sure there's logistics. And you said that you usually keep fairly close, aside for like the Florida events. But if someone was listening in and around here and said, this is something I'd like to try to do, but I really don't know the blueprint. What do I need to do to run an event like this? Would someone who wants to start out really small, for example, or just maybe talk to their local American Legion post and take a couple of vets fishing? Are there people in your organization that will talk to others that have just that thought or that idea?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the things that actually has been kind of, we get calls and emails from all over the country for simply that a veteran wants to go fishing and doesn't have the capability, doesn't have a boat, doesn't have a car, whatever it might be. We've had a couple occasions where honestly the veteran said they're terminally ill and just would like to go one more time. So we'll research guides and VFWs and fishing clubs and things in their area, and hopefully hook them up with somebody who could take them out fishing. So we will do that as well. And we'll absolutely talk to people who want to take veterans out fishing, because a lot of it, a lot of it has to revolve around the safety part of it, and making sure, there's liabilities you're going to may incur if you're not careful with what you do. We have actually, we're one of our I call him our ambassador. He's our pro staff fisherman, Dave Van Dorn. He fishes. He's a total volunteer. Been with the group since it started, but he fishes over 150 days a year, and he takes veterans out fishing all summer long. It's amazing. So that part of thing has grown. So we're actually going to implement a program to where we're going to make it a little more formal. If we have a veteran, it's kind of in the Midwest area again, because we got to stick close because that's where we're at.
Sure.
But if we get a veteran who's looking to go fishing, we'll have basically other volunteer guides as part of our program, because we're getting to the point where we're getting enough requests where we have to add some staff, and we're going to be doing that. So that's going to be kind of a test program this year with a couple of guides and veterans that we've known for many years. That kind of thing is really good. In fact, that's a lot of times a good place for, like, if there's veterans, if there's a VFW or a fishing club person listening in, that's a great place to start, because you can organize a small, get a few friends and hey, we're going to do this for you guys today. And if you want to do something where you come back in and have a few hamburgers and hot dogs, a lot of times that's all it takes. And as I see, and you start kind of small, and as things grow, it could turn into something great. Just never know. But yeah, for sure, we'll actually we get requests and questions all the time about that. So for sure.
The number of volunteers that are needed to organize and maybe to pull off an event like this, I guess I have the question as to how many you might need. But those that want to volunteer, how do they do that? And then, do you have, again, just thinking, being a member of several different service organizations over my lifespan, like Sertoma, Lions, those kinds of things. Do you have groups that maybe of several individuals from a service organization that volunteer? You get 4 or 5, 6 volunteers from different service organizations, and I guess my main question is, how many volunteers does it take to organize or help pull off an event like this?
Well, it depends on the size of the event. Our the event in Madison, on the Madison Chain of Lakes here in Madison, Wisconsin, that's kind of our flagship event. That's kind of where it all started. That's our largest event as well. So that one will have 100 veterans out there. That one needs 30 volunteers, because there's lots of cleanup and setup. And now the one in Eagle River will probably have 50. You don't need 30. You need maybe 10 or 15. And we do have where not only service groups look to send people, we have donors and sponsors from different companies that will organize their employees to come down and help. They either do as a volunteer, or they'll organize those employees to be guides, which is great, because it lets them give back to their company, and in their programs for that. In fact, I just had a conversation with a potential donor yesterday, a large corporation nationwide, and asking me the very same question. How many guides do you need, and can I organize that? I said, absolutely. That anytime we can have volunteers to help our events or do some fundraising, it just makes that much easier for us to cover expenses for those events. And that's the other thing people can do too. I mean, if people want to go out and collect prizes that we can give, and gifts that we can give to dinner at our events, that's great, because we welcome all of that. There's a lot of ways people can help. Volunteering can help in many ways, and we always look at volunteer or helping helps the helper too. Not only do you're helping the people that are the focus of the event, but you're also helping yourself, because honestly, you come out of the events feeling pretty good about things, and your outlook can change your life, just from simply helping out, as the reason why you're doing what you do.
Right. And the thing, and again, you and I visited before, and one of the things that you mentioned was the fact that the conversation, whether it's between the families and volunteers, or whether it's the veterans and the people that are the fishermen they're taking them out, it's the conversation that's part of that healing process.
Absolutely. Just getting people open up. It's really weird when they're on a fishing boat out there quiet. You get off ashore, and it's almost like everything else, you forget about everything once you're offshore. It's the strangest feeling, as like when you're even getting out in the woods, it's the same thing. You forget about that stuff, and that's important, because it clears your mind. It focuses on something different than your normal stresses of life, and so all that has a factor in the healing process, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, as we start to wrap up here, are there any bits of information, phone numbers, website, email addresses that you'd like to share with listeners that might want to find out more about Take a Vet Fishing and maybe possibly be a donor or a volunteer?
The best place and easiest place would be to go to our website, which is www.takeavetfishing.org. All of our information about us, about our events, about our partners, about resources we have, how to donate is all there. To reach out to us, there is a phone number on there, which goes to my phone, so I can answer that if they call. But they also, if you want to contact us through our website, info@takeitfishing.org, that goes to all of our board members. So one of us will be able to answer the questions, get back to you on that. So part of my job is to handle many of those messages. And you can send a message to the website. You can send an email. There's several ways to do it. Just contact us directly, because that's usually the easiest way to explain things, just directly. So, but yeah, that's it. A lot of what we've done is strictly through word of mouth. People go to an event, love it. They tell their friends, they come to the event. They tell a friend, they find out a donor. They come to the event. That's the best way, I think, to make it work, because it means something to people then when they follow up and actually come. So
sure. One of the things that I would ask, if it's possible, Mark, is after the first event or first and second event, doesn't matter, if you could reach out, we'd love to have an update in terms of how the event went and, how many participated, and maybe get some feedback with regard to that, because this is something that I think that we would like to keep, in the front of people's minds, not just a one and done type thing. So,
no, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. I think, and the other thing I can do too is I put together a newsletter that I put out about every 6 weeks. Kind of depends on the events that happen, but about every 6 weeks I'll put a newsletter out, which goes to our donors and our supporters, which just lets them know what we're doing. I think we find it important to let the people who are supporting us know where their dollars are being used and what they're being used
sure.
for, and to keep them engaged best we can, because we can't talk to everybody. We try to talk to as many as we can, but this way it allows people to see what we've been doing, how we've been helping veterans, what kind of events we've been doing, and just to keep them engaged, because it's important, and that sort of thing can give rise to a fundraiser or somebody who needs help. It's all about that reaching out and networking and creating awareness, and there's many ways we can do that. So I'll get you on that. I'll send the latest newsletter to you and get you on our newsletter, so you can keep track what we're doing too.
That's great. Perfect. Well, Mark, thank you for your time. Appreciate your willingness to help us out and be a guest on our podcast. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and thank you for what you guys are doing for the folks you're helping. It's all a combined effort, and to make the world a better place. That's all we can try to do, I guess. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned here is a reminder is that, the world is a better place with you in it. And we want to make sure that if you are suffering, that you do reach out for help. So if you are suffering from mental health related distress, or are in a suicide crisis, or having suicidal thoughts, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. And if you are a veteran in crisis, or the person you know is a veteran in crisis, then press 1 to be connected to the Veterans Crisis Line. Again, to all our listeners, take some time to get outside, get outdoors, and experience its healing powers. And with that, on behalf of Catherine and me, until next time.
Thank you.